All right, this is Larry Krueger for the Krug Show with a look ahead to the NBA trade deadline and how that impacts the Golden State Warriors. Now, as we're sitting here on a Tuesday, there's a report, according to Anthony Slater, who covers the Warriors for The Athletic. He says the noise around the league the last couple of days is an increased willingness from the Warriors to engage in conversation and explore the idea of moving their younger, out of the rotation players if a significant enough upgrade is offered. There's a greater whiff of aggressiveness tied to the Warriors. So, the players to point to in such a scenario are clearly James Wiseman, Moses Moody, and Jonathan Kuminga. Now, I don't believe the Warriors are willing to move Jonathan Kuminga. So, really, that puts the emphasis on James Wiseman and Moses Moody. Okay, so that's one report that's out there that I think is really very interesting. The fact that the Warriors are now having this kind of increased level of intensity on their desire to move some young players. So they're looking to get something done. I think the Warriors know what I know, which is that they can't win the title this year if they don't have an improved cast. I mean, right now their situation is that they're not getting anything out of James Wiseman or Moses Moody on a nightly basis. And in addition to the fact they're not getting anything out of those guys, they're also in a situation where they haven't been able to trade them. So those guys, they can't trade them, and they're sitting at the end of the bench, and they're not really helping the team win games, and they're not contributing. And to me, it's like you got to get one or the other. You either get Moses Moody and James Wiseman on the floor and get them contributing to winning, or if you can't do that, you really got to find a way to move those guys for a rotation player or two that can help you. All right, here is the scenario that I'm proposing. I was looking at the odds today of where the NBA free agents are supposed to go as far as, the odds out there where they're listed as potential odds. And the one that caught my eye, the Warriors were only tied to two free agents. And they did this for Bogdan Bogdanovic, who I really like, DeMar DeRozan. Give you an idea, Bogdanovic's team, if he's traded, the favorite is the Lakers. If DeRozan's traded, the favored team is the Lakers and then Memphis. If Fred VanVleet gets traded away from Toronto, the Brooklyn Nets are a 3-1 favorite to land VanVleet. John Collins, if the Hawks move John Collins, the Portland Trailblazers are favored to land Collins. Nikola Vucevic from the Bulls, if he moves, they say the Lakers are the favorite to land him. OG Anunoby, Memphis is the 2-1 favorite if he's traded to land him. Russell Westbrook, if he gets moved, Orlando's the favorite. Zach LaVine is favored to go to the Knicks. Well, the only two players where the Warriors are even mentioned as a possible landing spot, one is Kevin Durant. So if Durant is traded, the Phoenix Suns are a 2-1 favorite to land him. The Celtics are the 3-1 second choice, but the Warriors, they list as the 4-1 third choice. Now, I don't think Golden State can make a deal for KD before the deadline. I think if they are going to trade for KD, it has to be this summer when they have more roster flexibility as far as who they can move and so on and so forth. But the one that really caught my eye is that the odds on Kyle Kuzma's next team, if traded, have the Warriors as the 2-1 favorite. So now this is people who are putting their money where their mouth is, and they're saying that the Warriors are the 2-1 favorite to land Kyle Kuzma from the Wizards if indeed he gets traded. The second choice was the Hawks at 3-1. The third choice was the T-Wolves at 4-1. You had the Nets at 5-1. The Kings at 6-1 for Kuzma. So I just thought that was really interesting that Kyle Kuzma, that the Warriors would be favored to pick up Kyle Kuzma. And it makes me think that the Warriors and the Wizards may be able to cook up a trade. Now, here's a trade that I ran through the trade machine that actually works. And I think it makes sense for both teams. It would send to the Wizards James Wiseman, Moses Moody, and Jermichael Green. to the Warriors, it would send Kyle Kuzma and Denny Avdia. A lot of people have reached back and said, you know what? I would do that as a Warrior fan, but I don't like that deal from the Wizards' perspective. A lot of people just flat out were like, hey, Krug, you're high as a kite. Wizards would never do that deal. But here's why I think they would. One, the Wizards are going nowhere. They're looking to rebuild. James Wiseman and Moses Moody are two young players that they can build around going forward, that they own contractually, going into the future. And they're buying low on James Wiseman and Moses Moody. And I think there's reasonable expectation that the value of both those players is going to go up and maybe go up dramatically. So there's that. I actually think that it's pretty fair. Then you look at Kuzma. From what I'm hearing and from what I'm reading, Kyle Kuzma is not going to sign with the Wizards this summer. He's got a player option. So if he were traded, he could exercise that player option and play next year for like $14 million for the Warriors. Or he can bypass that option and become a free agent this summer. And a lot of people feel like he is going to do that and that he's going to walk away from the Wizards at the end of the year. So if you really look at it from that perspective, the Warriors are getting a player in Kuzma that they may only have for a very short amount of time. So they have to get a significant second piece of the puzzle, and that enters Denny Avdia. Now, Avdia is not much of a shooter. I'll say that, but he's a player that the Warriors really liked in the draft. He's a 6'9" player. He can pass, he can dribble, he's skilled. He doesn't necessarily have a very good outside shot. He's not a sniper. But what he is a 6'9" player who potentially can make other players better, and a young player that they control into the future. So in this move, yeah, you're moving Wiseman and Moody and Jermichael Green, and Green's playing better right now, but he just has not been a fit for the Warriors. I only included him in this deal to make the numbers work on the cap. But I mean, if you really look at it from the Warrior perspective, I think you might be selling low on Wiseman, but from the Wizards perspective, you're getting Wiseman and Moody for Denny Avdia and a month of Kyle Kuzma. I think the Wizards have a pretty good idea that Kuzma's not going to sign. So if you look at it through that prism of would you trade a month of Kyle Kuzma and Denny Avdia for James Wiseman, Moses Moody, and Jermichael Green? I think from the Wizards' perspective, you absolutely would. Now, if Avdia had proven to be a star, then this deal's a pipe dream. But he has not really shown that yet. He's struggled to shoot the ball. And he's had some ugly stat lines in the last month. I like him just because I think he's got some upside potential, and I'm sure the Warriors see that upside potential as well. But this is hardly an overwhelming deal for Golden State. But I think their situation with Kuzma would be different than the Wizards. I think Kuzma, who's been out in LA and lived in California, is into fashion, and I think that it's likely he doesn't want to sign with the Wizards. But a team like Golden State that contends for titles, that plays in California in a major market close to LA, where I'm sure he's got contacts from all the years of living down there, he probably looks at the Warriors as an extremely attractive proposition. So, you know what? Even though he's a free agent at the end of the year, if he wants to be, maybe if the Warriors can make the trade and acquire Kuzma, maybe he opts in and they get him next year at $14 million, and then they can work out a long-term extension with Kuzma if they can. Kuzma knows how to play the game. He's got a pretty good basketball IQ. And Avdia is a passer who also has got a high basketball IQ. The Warriors would be adding two players who know how to play the game to their rotation, and that would immediately make them better. Let's face it, Wiseman's not playing. Moody's not playing. Jermichael Green's playing sparingly. You would add in Kuzma and Avdia, two guys that would immediately jump into your rotation. But you could argue that if Kuzma decides he wants the big payday at the end of the year, you're handing over James Wiseman, Moses Moody, and Jermichael Green simply for Denny Avdia. So in that scenario, that's advantage Wizards. So I think this is a deal that there's some risk, there's some upside, There's some, a little bit of a gamble from both sides. I think that's a very, very fair trade. And now that I see that the Warriors are the favorite to land Kyle Kuzma, it makes me think that they want Kuzma. And I don't think they'll move Kuminga, but I think they would move Moody, and I think they would move Wiseman. But you can't move Moody and Wiseman for Kuzma alone and have him walk at the end of the year. I mean, the worst thing you could do for Golden State, if you're Bob Myers, is give away James Wiseman, give away Moses Moody, and then only get Kuzma, and then have Kuzma walk at the end of the year in free agency, and now you have nothing, absolutely nothing. You can't do that. So you have to have another player of with some upside coming your way to make it make sense. And Denny Avdia is that player. So is it an ideal deal? Does it give the Warriors some size? Yeah, it does in Kuzma. It gives them some shooting as far as Kuzma. It gives them two high IQ basketball players who are, um, can play multiple positions, can defend multiple positions, and can make other people better. So I think the ball movement will be good. I think this will be good for Golden State going forward. But it's also about, can the Warriors do what I think the Wizards can't do, and that's extend Kyle Kuzma and get his name on a contract extension. So to me, I think that's a deal where there's risk for the Wizards, there's risk for the Warriors. The Wizards potentially could win that trade overwhelmingly if Kuzma decides to walk elsewhere as a free agent in the offseason. But if Avdia and Kuzma fulfill their potential and Moody and Wiseman continue to struggle, long term, it could be a very good deal, advantage Golden State. So to me, that's a perfect kind of trade where there's some risk and there's some reward for both trade partners. And so, you know what? I don't know if this deal is going to come down. I've yet to see it in print. To me, it makes a lot of sense. So today's Tuesday. The NBA trade deadline's not till Thursday. The buyout market after that should be pretty substantial as well. And the Warriors may get involved in that buyout market instead of the trade market. But something tells me they're going to be active before Thursday. And Wiseman, Moody, and Green to the Wizards for Kyle Kuzma and Denny Avdia, I think is a fair trade. Tell me what you think in the comments below. Thanks for watching The Krug Show.